Well, we talked Michael into just staying now, and we did a second part so we can have it for you guys because there's just too much going on that's good that I'd like all you to hear out there. And Angela, you were going to ask Michael a question about what he's involved in right now, right?
Yeah. When you get up in the morning, Michael, what projects do you have going on? I know we know you're working with the team and you're working at Heavenly. What else do you have going on these days?
Well, I teach skiing this year full-time at Heavenly on a non-COVID year. I would be on the road probably 40 to 50 days, doing things from working with our membership and staff training at other resorts, trying to organize some during the season training for the Alpine team. Spending a bunch of time talking with the other coaches. We try and get together and chat. I mean, Jeb, as our head coach, Jeb Boyd, has done a wonderful job of making sure that we stay connected and are just kind of telling each other where we're at, keeping each other up to date where we're at. I've been fortunate enough. Unfortunately, I've been fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time the last couple of years with U.S. ski team athletes coming back from injury. It's a little bit of a spot that they found success, hopefully with me a part of it. I do work with Ski Magazine as the director of instruction, and certainly online content is increasing for them, digital content, and I spend quite a bit of time with Nordica, best ski brand in the world.
Sister brand to Blizzard Technica.
Oh my God. Big brother.
Big brother. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. I'll go with that. I'll let Erickson know. Erickson will hear this. He'll be really happy you said that. Mr. Chris Erickson will love that. But spending time with Nordica, I've been a part of a couple of exciting projects. I was part of conceptualizing a new learning ski or teaching ski, beginner ski, which was a lot of fun. So I'm fortunate enough to have had a relationship with Nordica since 1994. Before they were Nordica, and it was Kesley. I'm they're folks out of New Hampshire. So I've been fortunate enough to do that. And then within the office and Nick Heron, I mean, during the season, Nick has still been full gas. He wants us as a educational arm of the organization to put in work and effort for the membership. We aren't able to do a whole lot of clinics this year, but feeling like when we can, the demand is going to be high. So planning that out, inner ski is not too far off, and we need to continue the work that we've done at the prior interskis in Bulgaria and then Argentina before that, and get those things always moving. We're working on our own. Talking to you guys we're working on our own set of a webinar series with the national team and team members and coaches to continue to provide connection. We were talking about relationships in the last go around, but connection with the membership, so that we feel everybody's feeling like the time and effort and money in dues that they're investing, has value and is worth it. I personally think you want to know what I wonder that our dues are pretty easy and pretty light and pretty cheap compared to other professional organizations, and the value that we get out of it is astronomical. And I think the national office and Nick Heron are doing a wonderful job continuing to bring offerings to us, whether that be through the catalog and a company that is a brand new supplier in Theyre, which is a percussion therapy gun, which is just amazing. It feels great. Yeah. To our staple hard goods suppliers like Nordica and there's a lot of irons in the fire. Some of them are really hot, and you got to touch them a lot, and other ones are lukewarm, and every now and again we just, like everything, you just keep the edge sharp, just keep the edge polished.
Yep.
So I have a question for you, because I have a relationship with Technical Blizzard, and I know it's not quite the relationship you have with Nordica. So, I mean, what are some of the cool things you get to do testing skis or the future skis? I mean, it's stuff that I wish I could get involved in, but I'm not quite up on that team like you. So what has been some of the things over the years to like really get involved with the manufacturers in that way? Well, I was fortunate enough. I mean, the enforcer, the Nordica enforcer, was the brainchild of the USA, and Sam Beck and Ethan Corpy, and they brought that to Nordica headquarters. It's an Italian company, but the skis are produced in Mittersill, Austria, not Mittersill, New Hampshire. Mittersill, Austria. That's just part of the ski area.
Yeah.
So I was a part of some of those thoughts, and it's basic stuff. I mean, those guys are really good at what they do, and the folks that work day to day in that. There's an Italian guy, Stefano, and the person in charge of ski building is a Austrian by the name of Florian Sear. He was a World Cup slalom skier, genius of a guy, really good, smart guy, nice guy too, engineers. But it's just giving them some basic thoughts and ideas. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to be a part of Ski Magazine's Gear Test. Yeah. I mean, Ski Magazine is the largest ski publication in the world, and when they put out a gear test, that people watch it, read it, pay attention to it. So when you can see where basic trends go, and you can help not predict, but figure out how to react to them or set those trends in the case of the Nordic Enforcer. I mean, it's just interesting to be a part of. Sometimes it's really basic stuff like, what color do you think it should be? Or other times it's, does the mounting point make a difference?
Yeah.
Or do you like this flex or that flex? And they pretty much have their minds made up. Yeah. But they're looking for some validation or for some information that says, from a ski instructor's point of view, when I think about general public skiing, I would put the mounting point here, not there, because it makes the ski react. And then you go, oh, that's a good idea. Let's put the mounting point in both points and just put a different line on it. I was a part of a ski with Nordica called the Drive that Sam and Ethan and Florian said, Michael, if you were to build a ski for a beginner, what would it be? And like all concept ideas, you have these, altruistic and idealistic ideas of what you think it should be, and then what comes out is substantially different than that. But at least you can connect the DNA pretty quick. You can see that the bloodline is from the idea to what actually comes out of the presses. You can see those things. And so that was really, really cool. I was really excited when they said, if you could build it, what would it be? Tell us everything you know about what it could be. And they ended up building it, and it does very well in certain places, knowing that it's a rental ski and it's a learning ski. So
when it comes to that kind of knowledge, to be able to look at skis and know what you want them to do, how much would you like to see our PSIA membership look at their equipment more to understand, to be able to not transmit specific information to the members, to our students, but to understand what it's supposed to do to be able to transmit stuff? Is that something you think about?
Well, it's something that I think about. I mean, it went into building that ski. I mean, one of the things that I think is the biggest issue is getting from a wedge gliding from, let's go all the way back. We had a snow plow. Well, we plowed snow, and then we went to a gliding wedge. And now you can teach people to make a parallel turn pretty quick. And I think one of the things that always got me was the tail of the inside edge of the inside ski always would get hung up. And, it would always get hung up because people are, they got their feet wider than they are apart. So the skis are tipped on their edges, and they can't get their feet close enough to get the skis underneath them to be flat, or they can't articulate their body to get the ski to be flat and release that inside edge. So they, came straight at you down the hill, and they couldn't turn. How come I can't turn? They, of course, they're trying to force it and twist their shoulders one way, and therefore they go the other way. And instead of steering at the front of the ski, they push out the back of the ski, and that then takes their feet and takes the ski and puts it onto an edge, and then they go straight. So, a skier's got to do the work. A ski's it doesn't have a brain. It knows what it's built to do, but it can't decide when to do it. So it's up to us to tell it what to do. So that inside edge, tail of the inside edge always concerns me. It's always, I mean, I've taken a pair of skis and just, cut it off, just get rid of it, dull the edge. You now have a left and right ski and get rid of it and round it up and bend it up. And when rockers started to come out, we started to see that skis were built to do this, stay flat and pivot. I went, that's that idea in tight trees needs to filter to beginners. Why? Because now we can get beginners to start to skid around. And when you can get I teach a lot of beginners at Heavenly. I love it. I really do. And I do it on purpose because I feel like if a beginner can do it, then it's probably value to an intermediate or an advanced skier. And if it's too much for a beginner, then it's probably, again, based on the last one, our last chat, I'm focused too much on me teaching instead of them learning. But being able to control that inside tail, and when you can get people to have their skis parallel and skid around the ski area, man, that's unlocking the palace. You are just letting people run and skidding and side slipping, and you can take people anywhere. And they're no longer stuck in the parking lot as a beginner. Next to the parking lot is in the beginner area. You can actually go out and ski them around the mountain and see different things and experience what it's like to be a skier. And they're becoming a skier. But when they're living on the carpet on the third day, that's not our best foot forward.
Yeah.
And people have Eric Lipton has done a great job with snow operating and terrain-based learning, and ski resorts have done that forever. And good teachers have always found places to use the snow to their advantage. But, at some point in time, people got to do it. And when you can get people to do it and they go, oh, that's different. I felt that. And then the ski area opens up and then it's fun. Then you're taking people places. Angelo.
Can we?
You can tell when he has a question, can't you, Michael? You could just tell. You
gets that. His eyes don't go. Sometimes I get that confused look, but
my poker face sucks.
Now he's rubbing his eyes like he's tired. Like, good Lord, I had to wait that long.
Oh my God, I've been waiting that. Well, no, I mean, in our last chat, somewhere toward the end, we left it with this idea of independence and dependence, and this is something that's been pretty hot topic for Dave and me in the last couple of podcasts. And that independence for students really should be the goal of the teacher, and you remove the ego and remove your preconceived notions, and it's about what they need to get where they want to go. But I'm curious if you had mentioned in a previous chat that there are some instructors at Heavenly who their primary goal is dependence of the students, which is the opposite of what we're talking about. And I'm very interested in development of membership, development of people on my staff who look to me or someone else on my training staff for the magic bullet. They're looking for the potion. Do you think that's true? Do you would you like to see more autonomy in the membership? And by extension, do you think if our members were more autonomous, if they sought autonomy more, you experiment. Lipton self-coaches. He said he self-coached when he was 16, do you think
I told him in Portillo, that's right. You can think what you want, but I'm telling you what you're doing.
You're rotating. I'm telling you.
I listened to these podcasts.
Yes,
guys.
You did. You did your homework. Do you think if we saw more autonomy from instructors, their approach to teaching would be different? They would approach students with more of a goal to make them independent. That's a long ass question. Like, here's some. Throw some spaghetti at the wall.
Yes. How's that for an answer? Yes.
Perfect. Yes. Next question, Dave. What do you got?
There we go.
I use the Heavenly because that's where I work, and if you use any ski area, it doesn't have to be Heavenly. In every ski area and every ski and ride school, there are coaches that choose a path to go down when it comes to developing clientele. And it's important. Return business is important. That's critical. We've all talked about retention within the industry and growing the sport. And there's two ways of doing it. And I'm sure there's a study. I mean, I'm sure you could find a study that would prove either way. Things that I'm paying attention to, and the way that I've decided to be, because I've been taught that way by people like Brian Dolan and Joe Wood and Jimmy Ackerson and Stu Campbell, my teammates, is that if you can either create dependence, and therefore you can't make a turn unless it's with me, and if I'm not out on the hill with you, then your turn is going to be terrible. And I feel like, yeah, that person would come back, but they don't do the sport without you. And I'm not quite sure if that's always the best thing. Whereas if I can create some independence that said, you know what? When I was with Mike, he gave me the ideas about how to correct this or fix this or feel that. And now I can go out and problem solve. So I don't feel like I can only do this once a week or 1 week a year. When I go to Lake Tahoe, I can do this at Stowe, or if I'm living in Washington DC, I can go to Wisp Mountain. It'd be nice if Wisp Mountain let Ron Hawks is a GM. If you taught skiing more, it'd probably be good for the ski area too. But it would be good for, people to go like, the snow's great in West Virginia. Yeah. I can go to my little place and ski. I can be in Pennsylvania and go out and have a good evening and pay attention to what I was working on when I was in Lake Tahoe skiing with Michael Rogan, or when I was up in New Hampshire with Dave, or with whomever, when I was in Aspen with Jennifer Simpson. And I just feel like when you give people choices and they make their own choices, they're showing that they're a little bit more cognizant of what it is they're trying to do, invested into what they're trying to do, and therefore committed to what they're trying to do. And they can figure it out. Yeah.
Where do you think the dependence habit comes from? He's pulling the trigger.
Can you say that so that the people on the podcast won't watch the YouTube know what you just did? You were just kind of referencing the money between the fingers, right? Yeah,
I think it's a quick, easy way to. We get paid more for request lessons. So the more request lessons I have, the more I make it per hour. Yep. And if people have a tendency to take private lessons, then there's probably a greater propensity for a propina, a tip. Sorry, it was the P thing. In a private lesson than a group lesson. But I also think that they really believe that they're serving their guests well. I mean, I can't say that there's malice in it or evil spiritedness in that. I don't think that any of the people that I've come across in working in a bunch of different ski areas that approach teaching that way, I don't think any of them have bad blood about it or malice about it or bad intentions. It's just the way that it came natural to them and the way they do that. And I'll be the first to say, I mean, I believe in this about learning about skiing and about our membership improving and getting better at it. I will point the finger in the mirror first before I will point the finger at somebody else. And I know that my first lesson was shit. Oops, sorry, it was terrible. I recognize that 28 years later, 35 years later. And I know that I still miss it. I know that I get back at the end of the day at an academy, or a beginner lesson here at Heavenly, or working with this US ski team member. And I know in my heart of hearts that I left something on the table. And chances are when I did, it goes down those avenues. Like I tried to give them too much information. I tried to tell them everything that I knew. I felt I tried to create dependence instead of independence. I taught instead of letting them learn. I got in the way, and they learned despite me in sometimes. And I'm still guilty of it to this day. I was guilty of it 2 days ago at Heavenly with a couple from they were from Lafayette, Louisiana. And at one point in time, I said, I just got to push back here because I feel like I'm getting in your way. Like you could figure this out. So I'm nearby and I'm not going away because we got all day to do this and we got other places to go. But I just caught myself going, man, they're just slowing down. Like their process was moving at a faster pace than my process was, because they were ready to learn and go about and figure things out. And I was ready to really get in there and teach them everything I knew about it, the intricacies of how the ankle worked and this. And I'm like, whoa, Michael, what are you doing here? Shut up and let these people do something. And they're going to come up with a question. And sure enough, a couple of runs on the magic carpet, they're like, okay, I'm struggling here. And I certainly saw that. I certainly saw where their struggle was taking them. But rather than dive right in there and go, I saw that one time for a split second, I'm going to fix that right now and spend 10 minutes doing it. I let them figure out what they were really struggling. And if it was a pattern, if it was something that really needed my attention, or if it was just important to me right now, but it really didn't make a difference to them. Okay. And I think we could all learn from ideas like that. Do first, talk about it later, instead of introducing it and talking about it and examining it and then studying it and then going out and trying it. Try it. And we still got to do our job. We still got to keep people safe. We still got to put them in places where they can be successful. That's our job, to kind of put them in a situation where they can be more successful than another situation and recognize that. We still got to observe their movements and their behaviors for the time when you need to have a discussion. But let's not be so quick to go, God, you got to do this, and this, and then add that to it. And then we'll take that away and then you'll be great. Meanwhile, they got so many wires crossed that they really get screwed up. If you'll indulge me, Angelo, we had the national team. We had a training session with two doctors in learning theory. Make sure I get this right. It was Dr. Rebecca Luthwaite and Dr. Gabrielle Wolf out of the University of Las Vegas, Nevada. And they came up with this idea of optimal learning. And it talks to a lot about some of the topics that you've brought up, the last conversation we had in this one about autonomy. And one of the slides that they pulled up was a balance board, and being on this balance board, this little wobble board. And they had EMGs. Ron Kipp is going to get mad at me. IMGs, EMGs, and weren't EKGs, but they were just electromagnetic sensors. And they just kind of put like a Richter scale when you're having an earthquake. They put that little line across it. And I sent you that in an email. I don't know if that's something that you could pull up and throw on the screen, Angelo, but it was amazing when people were focused on what body parts controlled this balance board. And when they just said, keep the board still. And the line when we're talking about, you got to eccentrically contract your calf and your anterior tibialis. I mean, that graph was doing this a lot. And then when they just said, just chill and calm the board down, the graph did this. It was a much smaller profile and much less electromagnetic stimulation from the muscles to get that to happen. And that's not to say that you don't need to know about your anterior tibialis and your calf muscle and and all of the muscles of your foot and how those operate. But when it comes time to performing and doing something, maybe you just need to go, just keep the gin in the glass for you guys, Lake Tahoe Blue Water. Keep the water calm. Yeah. And maybe that's all it takes versus, well, you need to do this with that and that with this and do this and this and the firing orders here and there and the other thing. And I'm certainly, this example is certainly getting blown out of proportion maybe, but the evidence is there. The science is there that says, let people do stuff, give them something to make the ski do, give them a way to, a track to make in the snow, and let them try and figure it out.
Let them try and sort it out. And then when it's time to go, okay, we're not doing this, we're going to talk about it. Well, you debrief or give feedback or have discussions, then you can get into those things. But when it comes time to do it, do it. One of the other people that we had a training with divisionally was this lady by the name of Nadine Dubin from the USOC in charge of coaches education. And she put up a great example. She had a little baby and she said, okay, let's talk about what you all know about how the body works and how muscles move and how muscles activate and how joints move and how nervous systems fire. And she goes, thinking about that technically and mechanically, she put up a picture of a baby and said, teach this kid how to walk. And from the point of view that we were given, you start to think, would you teach the baby, okay, I need you to stand up and use your foot as a tripod and use your heel and your fifth metatarsal and the ball of your foot to stand on, and then pay attention, use the cones and the rods and the balls in your eyes and your ears to figure out how you are far enough so you don't tip over, and then transfer your weight to one foot while you push off of that to the other foot? Or would you just put mom across the room and go, come on, come here. Hang the carrot or the sweet or the candy or whatever. And how would you go about that? And I mean, those are perfect examples of to show, to prove your point. But, those are things that we as coaches should consider. I mean, if someone doesn't do something, is it really because they're not doing it right? Or is it because we probably are not teaching them right, or we didn't let them learn, or we got in the way? That's why when Matt Boyd said, I was skiing great, and Rogan came down and said, are you standing on your outside ski? And he said, yep. And I said, are you sure? Do we get in the way of people learning? And oftentimes I think, unbeknownst to us, we might, more often than not.
You're familiar with a book called The Inner Game of Tennis?
Yeah, for sure.
Timothy Galway. And basically the
Vermont guy,
the anecdotal piece to the research experiment that I happened to get a bootleg copy of the research you were talking about with the two psychologists, and it's terrific. And you shift the locus of focus to something external. With Galway, it was, rather than make your shoulder or your wrist do this, which is internal, hit the ball here, or keep the racket this way. And the same thing with the ski. But that shift from internal to external and the removal of ego really seems to help, not only with technique, but with relationships and coaching. And it's an evolved form of performance all the way around, all three pillars. And I think that, where you guys have taken us, by way of pathways that other people started, with regard to the national team and our curriculum, it's really an evolved curriculum that it's about, getting out of the way, as you say, and creating environments, which is a really challenging way to coach. The low hanging fruit is the death by explanation route that we often take, that we've taken for years. But I think what we're doing is really evolved. And one of the things in the first episode that you were talking about the history, and you said here, even in this episode, here's the design that we ended up with for this beginner ski, but you could see the DNA in it from the original idea. You have this really tremendous long view of a lot of things that most of us don't have, which is impressive. But even with the, where we are right now with the learning connection model and talking about things that happened in the 70s and things that happened in the 80s. I had this fictitious instructor in the back of my head. We get these curmudgeons on our staff sometimes. I think they pay their dues just so they can complain about the organization. I love them. I've known these guys my whole life, right? But it's like, what are they doing this year? Yeah. Oh, what are they going to say this? What's the new buzzword this year? But everything that you've talked about is really an antithesis to that. This is all well thought out. It's mature. It's evolved, and it's really impressive.
Well, thank you. The scary part, or the make you wonder part is that, I mean, you're talking about Timothy Galway, and that book was done when? I mean,
well, I have my Googles up. I can tell you in a second.
Well, it doesn't matter, but it wasn't last year.
No, 74.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the idea of learning theory and paying attention to learning theory and how people learn and how people best learn has been, I mean, is decades old. It doesn't evolve for sure. There's been an evolution in learning styles. Certainly. I mean, learning styles was something that is, that I can remember being examined on at level 2, associate, level 3, full cert. I mean, and there's an evolution that's going on there with learning styles, but just paying attention to learning theory and motor learning and how people go about it and do it and how they can do it better is important. And then that's not to negate our mechanical understanding of physics, biomechanics, and turn mechanics. We need to know those things. That stuff doesn't go away. As you say, it's not a throw this out, because if you throw this out, what you end up with is you end up with experiential teaching where you're just told to go out and do something, and you have no reason or understanding or no outcome that's been determined about why you're doing what you're doing, and you end up just doing it. But with no purpose. So we need to know the stuff that allows us to formulate and set up a purpose, but then provide the situations. And by knowing those parts about physics and turn mechanics and snow conditions and equipment and all of those things that we need to understand, that is part of a good ski instructor's understanding and development. We need to take all of that and make a decision that all the student recognizes is that they were successful and they did something different, and then provide them with an information later if they want to know, because there are people that want to know, hey, look, I need to know, I'm a gymnast. I work out a lot. I'm a PT. I understand how the body works very well. So if you tell me that it needs to be my anterior tibialis, which does that to my foot or helps pronate or supinate my foot, that's good information for me to have. But when it's time to go out and do that, let's not focus on that necessarily. Let's focus on getting the ski to do something here or there, back and forth, or whatever it is. So though it is by no means discrediting all of that other stuff. It's not a or, it's a and. And it has to be an and. I mean, we got to get smarter at it. And that's what it's asking, is us just to be smart about learning theory and how people learn. And because we have tendencies, if you want to make, I have a friend who's coaching at Sierra Ski Ranch or Sierra Ski Resort, Sierra Tahoe now, who's training, and he's got somebody who's going for their level 3, and their default movement and 100% of their movement is through releasing the skis, is through flexion. Now there are proponents to that, and there are people that say that's the only way to do that, and that is the Bible and the gospel, and that is the Holy Grail. Within our system, we say you at a level 3, you need to be able to do that and a different way. You need to have multiple movement patterns with which to do things. So that's the goal, is that we don't get stuck with one way to do that. There are multiple ways to skin a cat, and depending on the situation that you need, you do one or the other, or you choose one or the other, but you make a choice based on your understanding of all the other stuff that help you make an educated guess, rather than going, I'm going to try this. This will work. It worked every time. Well, maybe there's a better way to do that. Maybe there isn't, but maybe there is. And if you don't expand your horizons to approach those things or to understand those things, you get stuck at one point. And until you have the other boundary, you never have a range. The point and the range are the same thing. And if you only have one point, you got nowhere else to go until you get another point of reference. Now you have multiple options. And that, I think, is when really important stuff take place in your skiing and in your teaching and in your understanding of teaching skiing.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. And I also wanted to come back to that bit about no malicious intent. I don't think I don't see malicious intent. What I see is, I saw this in public ed, I see it in teaching on the ski hill, we have a tendency to want to relieve the stress or the suffering of our students. But it's that stress and suffering that's the learning bit, And I think our tendency is to try to say, oh, well, they don't need to experience these hardships. I experienced them and I can get them through them. But that's how we learned. You just have to get out of the way and let them suffer and poke and prod and push a little bit or pull if you have to. But
and sometimes, look, I'm the first one with my job as the Alpine team coach. I'm the first one that says there are times when you need to suffer through it. And there are plenty of them within our tryouts or within our trainings where all of us have had to suffer through it and figure it out, and it wasn't comfortable. It is awfully nice when somebody comes along and taps you on the shoulder and picks you up and pats you on the back and then pushes you in the right direction. And but suffering doesn't just because it's painful doesn't mean that it hurts. Suffering doesn't always have to be a bad thing. And can we minimize it? For sure. Yeah. Can we help to minimize it? For sure. But are we fixing something so that they get it once in front of us, or are we setting them up to learn something that they can figure out in their own later? Yeah. So I agree with you. The suffering is good, but at the same time, we don't need to negate it. We might need to minimize it from time to time, especially when it comes to safety. But sometimes figuring it out is when you really learn it. It's not when you just do it once because you were told how to. It's when you figure out how to do it, when you can do it again.
Yeah. So when it comes to, which I think you kind of answered it for me already for the skiing, but I just want to emphasize it that, we've been talking a lot, Angela and I, about people that are training for exams or just working with students, and they kind of keep working on one thing. And it seems like your answer for them to the skiing is remember that to have multiple options, to be able to do things multiple ways, to be successful. Because we find them wanting to do one thing, like what's right, what's wrong. And they get stuck in that.
Well, for sure. I mean, there's a bigger question in there. It's a great question. There's a bigger question in there is are we as a country set up and driven by certification? Or are we set up and driven through education? And there's two ways of looking at it, right? An experienced person, I would say, you got to go through this process. You got to suffer a little bit. You got to do it multiple different ways. And everybody wants to shortcut experience. I mean, there just isn't a way to shortcut experience. I don't get to the place where I make a decision about whether to push one student, and then in the next beginner lesson, be the last person to get on the magic carpet. That decision comes through the experiences that I had that tell me this person I can push and this person I can't. So do you go about this process of going, look, I'm going to get all the education I can, and then as a result of all this education, my certification steps will take place. It will just be a point that I move through, and if I'm good, I will get certified. Or, the other thing is, do I train for certification? Do I understand how to take an exam? And do I have a couple of right answers and a couple of progressions that I know will work? And I think at some point, at some level, that's the case. At a level one, if they can understand the difference between a wedge and a snowplow, perfect. At level 2, they better understand the difference between a wedge and a snowplow and how to get somebody out of that wedge. I mean, it moves along in gradients. I was talking about this the other day in preparation for our tryouts that didn't happen last spring that are going to happen this spring. Yep. It's really easy. I don't have the manual with me. I had it at one point, but it's really easy to learn to memorize what page 46 in the manual says. In the Alpine Technical Manual, the Teaching Snow Sports Manual, or the Snowboard Manual, or the Adaptive Manual, it's really easy to memorize what it says. And in preparation for the tryouts, there will be plenty of people that will give you what page 46 says in the manual.
That's not going to make it, is it?
No, they need to know what page 46 says.
Yeah.
You need to know what it says. You need to understand what it says. You need to know where it came from. You need to understand the application of it and where it could go
and how it changes with this situation or that situation or this student or that student. And then you have to have your own opinion about how you might be able to formulate that or develop it or talk about it in a 1 hour webinar, or have a conversation that carries on for more than that, or at lunch in the lodge or in the bar afterwards. So knowing what page 46 says in the manual is pretty straightforward and simple. Our membership, from my perspective and my time on the road, you two guys, and the Eastern BOE or the Western BOE or whatever division you're from, or the National Academy or the Masters Academy, if I said all I could do was tell you what page 46 said, I wouldn't have been here since 1996. Yeah. And it's not it's not about what I've done. But every team member that's successful has been able to go, yeah, I know what 46 says. I know what it thinks about. Here's how I look at it. Here's how it applies to this. This is where it may have came from. Here's how it references to the Austrian technique. Here's how it might have crossed tracks with the French technique. Those French people were in southern Vermont instead of northern Vermont. They were at Mount Snow and they weren't in Stowe, or they were in Sugar Bowl, California, or in Aspen, Colorado. And then I've seen where this connects and how that moves to here. And it went through Horst Abraham and Mike Porter and Carol Levine and Sean Smith and Dave Merriam. And it went through all those people. And it came out looking like this. I mean, that's what you guys, as a reference to our membership, are expecting of us. And that's what people that are getting ready for the national tryouts that I'm expecting of them, because it's not my expectations. Well, they are, but it's also what the country expects. It's what the world expects for us when we go to interski.
What you thinking, Angelo?
You got to know that stuff.
He's thinking.
It's all right.
I bet a lot of my people at home don't know what interski is. Can you?
Right.
Not just the definition, but what's the importance of it? What's it mean to go there and participate?
It happens once every 4 years. It is where all the alpine nations of the world that teach snow sports get together and just kind of show their wares and show what they do and what they're about and how they look at skiing and snowboarding and adaptive skiing and telemark and Nordic skiing and teaching and learning theory and what's important to them, and have an opportunity to put that on display to the rest of the world. It started out, I don't know when exactly. I should know this, but I can't remember. I wasn't there. So it was really a long time ago. But it started out as a way it was a marketing idea. If Austria wins Interski, then all of the tourist dollars to Europe will go to Austria to learn, because Interski said that they had the best teaching technique. Mm-hmm. Or if Germany won, then they had the best technique. Or if France won, then the tourism tended to get bent towards France, and they got the tourism dollars. So that's where it started. As the world got smaller, it became more about the content of the stuff and the sharing of the information than it was about trying to win it to get tourism dollars. There was I feel, a dark period when it became about synchronized skiing and the formation skiing. I feel like it was a dark time.
Angelo just smiling ear to ear when you said that.
well, but I got my thoughts about it though, because I've now since evolved my opinion. But I feel like it was a little bit of a dark time, because what became important, instead of the exchange of information and getting everybody better at teaching, it became about who could do the best formations and spend the amount of time skiing together in little, formations. And I feel like it a little bit lost its way, but the organizing committee and the people that were in charge and the countries that hosted it, that's what they were into. So therefore that's where it went. It's been a while since we've had an interski in the US. So it's kind of hard to be critical of the rules when you're not prepared to be a part of that game and get into the rulemaking. And we haven't for a long time. There is certainly a movement and thought that it would be nice to, but that's a long ways down the road. And then then it got into this, back to this exchange of information, because countries said, I'm out. We're out. We're not investing our time and effort and money and resources, in our case, membership dues, because we're not funded by the government, to participate in something that's about formation skiing. We need to figure out how to get this information of the world's best teachers and bring it back to our country and assimilate it into our methodology, and take what's good and compare us and find out where we fall in that mix. And that's when really good things take place. And that's when, when you have a great interski in Bulgaria, just a small little ski area. This was teeny tiny place that had conditions very similar to the East Coast, had elevations a little bit higher, but close to New England. So the conditions at that time, it got warm. So we all know what happens in New England when it gets warm. Yeah. And then it freezes. So you get, a couple piles of sugar, or in the mid-Atlantic. So it was like that, but the importance was replaced on exchange of information. Yeah. And when that happens, good things come out of that. And it forces us as a country to kind of take a little bit of a litmus test to find out where we're at, what we think, and then develop it to the point that it can become a presentation that goes to the world community, and the world community becomes our critics, and they go, boy, that was really good, or that was junk. And some of the presentations, some of the workshops are junk, and some of them are really good. But you learn a lot about what countries value. Ours have always been about education. Ours have always been about teaching. Ours are continue to be about learning. Will continue to be more about learning. And then the countries that come in, and their biggest concern is the synchronized skiing. That's not what is most important to us. That being said, Rob Sogard in the teams prior to me taking over as the Alpine coach, there were discussions that said, look, we got to spend time doing this. We need to play in their swimming pool, because if we don't play in their swimming pool, we don't get the props. And therefore, if we can get the props for being good or better or showing improvement, then we've got their attention. And then that gives us a platform to invite them to participate in the stuff that we think is important. We got to do what they think is important so that we can get them to do what we think is important. And then somewhere along the way, things bend towards each other for a while, and then they veer away, and then they bend towards each other for a while. So thankful to Nick Heron and the organization for supporting it. But we've put a much bigger effort on giving acknowledgement to the importance of the skiing and our maneuver skiing, synchronized skiing, formation skiing, and it will continue, because that's the best way to get our foot in the door to have the other conversations. And it's interesting what takes place, if I can. I know that we got the time, but there was a country who was all about this new way of doing things. They were going to leave one thing behind and go a different way. If you paid attention to the last podcast, here's a segue to go listen to the last one. It was in there, but they were paying attention to this, and then they came back out and said, we're going to do it this way now. And it was a good idea. So they said that they were about adaptability and change and versatility and doing things in a new and different and exciting way. And then you watch them do their demo, and clearly they were well skilled, one of the best, well practiced, well choreographed. It was beautiful. So they started, I'm using the lines in my box to talk in, but they started at the start where we all did, and they did their demo, and it stopped here. And then the crowd is way down here at the bottom. So they kind of got halfway from the top to the bottom, and their demo was done. So they were the smallest, where you could see the least, and furthest away for their whole demo. And you go, it just makes you think. These are the things that I feel like, because I've been around long enough, I can see, because Sean Smith, Dave Merriam, Mike Porter, teammates before me, Scott Mathers, Bob Barnes, Jay Evans, Carol D, Murmur. I learned from these people to watch Rob Sogard, but they started their demo here and they finished it there. When you ask them why, the answer was, well, this is where our demo, we practiced it for 18 turns, and this is where 18 turns took us. And then you go, well, yeah, but the crowd is down here. How come you couldn't adapt your demo or change your demo or modify your demo to involve the crowd? Why would we do that? Our demo ended here. And you go, so you know what? You're really not into that adaptability, versatility piece quite as much as you say, because the countries, most of the rest of the countries, we did our demo the way we'd practice it, and we got to about here, and we went, oh, there's this much space left. We got to figure out how to make our demo end here. So we adapted our demo. We changed the choreography a little bit. We made it a little bit different. So we were able to start at the start and finish at the finish in front of the crowd and involve the people. Whereas that other country went from here to there and then sauntered down and left. And you go, based on what you say about what you're doing with your students and your system, and then based on what you show in your demos, there's a disconnect there. Yeah. And it may have been by design. It may be what they were intended to. It may have been something that I read into it because I wanted to read into it. But other countries had the similar. I've spoken with Richard Jameson, who was the coach of the Australian team. We were talking about this exact same thing the other day, and he said, "Yeah, we finished our demo and we were a long ways away. So we needed to figure out and adapt and get our demo to not start later, but start where everybody starts and then finish in a different spot. We needed to adapt. And when you see that from a country, then you go, oh, okay. So you really believe in adaptation, versatility, that kind of stuff. When you don't, then you don't."
No. Angelo, I love how he's going to say he didn't plan it, but he finishes right up with involve the crowd, involve the students, adaptability, versatility. And then he just drops the mic.
He practiced this.
Hey, do you have that one or
we
two?
We talked about that when it comes to tuning skiing. I mean, tuning skis or anything, just controlling variables. If it's a variable you can control it. I would have been a knucklehead and stupid had I not paid attention to your podcast.
So, Angelo, do you have that one or two 10-second question you usually like to ask a couple at the end to get the giggles?
Who's better on the unicycle, you or Robin?
There you go.
Who's better on the unicycle?
We're going to ask her. So
Robin Barnes.
There she is.
Can she hear me?
Yeah. Who's better on? Well, I'll ask her the question. Okay, who's better on the unicycles, you or me?
We chat our days.
We chat our days.
She's so political.
No, you know what? I would say that Robin was consistently able to ride further.
Oh.
Consistently. But when I got it, I could go the length of the football field. But it didn't happen very often. But she was able to go more consistency longer.
That adds up.
It's unbelievable, man. You have to figure it can't be that hard. I can ski on one ski with no poles. It can't be with my legs screwed. It can't be that hard. No. And then all of a sudden you push and the thing is out in front of you. And,
oh my God. I bought one at the beginning of the shutdown, and it just took a beating for months. It's humiliating.
I went out on a Hovland snow skate. I mean, I know that, Angela, you're a snowboarder. And I have snowboarded before. I did it this year a couple of times, but we have snow skates. Yep. And I went out on a snow skate a couple of weeks ago because it was sunny and warm and the snow was tough and I had a day off and I'm like, I'm going to go out and see. Man, did I get learned.
That's experiential learning right there.
Oh,
there were plenty of unplanned opportunities for learning.
Oh man. Well, Michael,
but it was fun.
Oh yeah.
Well, let me say this since you gave me the mic. Well,
you got it.
Here's my takeaway. It's been a pleasure, Michael. Thanks for coming on. The thing that I heard the most of tonight, I think that ties everything together is this enormous lack of ego. You started the first episode just naming names of people who got you to where you are and just given all this credit, and then lack of ego makes good teaching. Lack of ego makes good learning. And that's just the theme. And then ending up with the Interski, lack of ego makes good demos for a country at Interski. Practice what you preach. Just bring it to the people, make it about them. And I think that's a powerful message. Thanks for bringing that.
Well, if that's what you got out of it, that's wonderful. It's certainly something that well, if I was 100% honest, I would say that early in my development, there was a point in time where I would say that my confidence in myself, taught by a lot of those people that I mentioned, but certainly my parents and my family growing up, and just my experiences and my success at doing things. I mean, I wasn't a great success. I was never an Olympian or that, but I was good at things. I could pick things up. I would say that at one point in time, there was probably a time when my confidence could get misconstrued as being egotistical. And I can remember getting, well, quite frankly, get my ass kicked because of it. That certainly changed the way that I look at it. And then through teaching, that's one of the things that I learned. And I feel like, if people would talk about me, I would love it that they say lack of ego or humbleness. I mean, that's something that it means something. So thank you for that. But I would say there was probably a time then where my confidence would have been misconstrued as ego and was misconstrued. I could tell a story about that. But
well, we're definitely going to have you. We ask you to come back. We could do a bunch of these. So you're.
Well, I got through the grapevine. I'd gotten word in my first tryout that in 1996 that it didn't matter how good of a skier I was. That with that ego, we can't have him be a part of the team.
Oh, wow.
And fortunately, I had some people in my corner that knew me a little bit better and said, "Look, that is not the case. I've never seen that. And given an opportunity, you will learn a little bit of the true colors that Michael has, and it is not about that. And that's something that has stuck with me since '96. And when I hear it today from you, Angelo, and Dave, we certainly had the conversation. I mean, it's something that's important. So I thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So how do you think we can get Robin on? We really wanted Robin, but we didn't think we could get her.
You took 2 hours and 2 episodes to ask me about, could you talk to Robin Barnes?
Can we get her back on?
You could have.
Let's get her on. I'll actually hit record.
You could have saved a lot of everybody's time, and we could have just asked her. I'm sure Robin would love to do this.
We're coming for her.
We're coming. We're definitely coming for her.
Yeah, she's a remarkable person and an amazing ski teacher.
Yeah.
And talk about experiential learning. I can remember Robin Barnes when we first met. Robin, may I?
She said yes.
Yeah, she definitely said yes.
Well, she knows what the story is. When she first, I was working in Portillo, Chile, and when she first came, which was a year later, the prior year we didn't have any snow until, didn't matter when, but then we got 4.5 feet of snow in one storm, and I'd never seen 4.5 feet of snow, and I had this was 1989. So slalom skis were still straight and GS skis were still straight, and nothing was fat or wide. So I couldn't go straight in this 4 feet of snow. I'd go straight, fall over, kill myself trying to stand up, go straight, fall over. But I did it all day long. Ron Hawks and I went to bed, and we were roommates. I was on the top. He was on the top bunk. I was on the bottom. But we went to our room and we were exhausted, couldn't move, and we fell asleep. We would all fall asleep, and we had these little like convulsions, and when you get so relaxed that you just kind of jolt yourself up. We both suffered these convulsions. We call them corpo convulsions because corpo is body in Spanish, but we were trying to learn Spanish at the time. But the next year, getting to Robin Barnes, and what an amazing teacher she is. And one of the things that I think is really influential in doing this, she was in that same predicament in a powder day underneath the chairlift. And I swear on my father's grave, she was in the same sit mark for
almost an hour. And this is a short chair. This is an 8-minute chair ride.
No way was it an hour.
She says it's not an hour, but I would bet. Well, it seemed like an hour because I know that I made, as an 8-minute chair ride, I made 5 laps. And every time that we lapped, we would say, "Are you okay? Would you like some help?" And she would look at us and go, "No." At first she was like, "No, I got it." And you could just see this transformation. I'm looking at her and she's looking at me right now. And you could see this transformation of, "No, I got it. I'll be okay. Thanks anyway. I don't need any help." To, "There's no way they're helping me. I'm going to make it. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to get to the top of that thing and I'm going to figure this thing out." And at that point in time, it was one of those things like on the 5th time and I'm riding over and I can relate. This thing happened to me a year ago. It was a fresh cut, not scabbed over. And I'm like, I can empathize with you right now. I've been there. She wanted nothing to do with anybody's help. And it got to be the point of, nope, I got this. I'll figure this out. And to this day, she is amazing at helping people figure things out and being empathetic about their struggle in skiing and in teaching. And I think part of it was because of that day in Portillo, Chile, where the answer was in the snow, unfortunately.
For an hour.
It took
for an hour. It was a whole hour.
Find it. But now she's an extraordinary skier and a wonderful teacher, just a brilliant person to have on the team, and fortunately to share my life with, but our lives with. But she's an example of team members pushing you to just be better and just be good. And so good luck to everybody this spring, I guess, is what I'll end that with.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And we definitely will be dropping a note at some point. Even if it's next fall, we want you back on.
I'd love to. I'd like these things. But
I'll do the remote live version from National Academy. I'll see you, Breckenridge.
And maybe we have one of these. We have one of these on the. Keep an eye out for not only this, but also the national webinar series coming in from the national office. I mean, a rising tide floats all boats.
That is a great idea.
You got it.
Yep.
You got it.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, always a pleasure.
Every time.
Congratulations on these casts.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Thanks for being on.
Thanks for supporting.
Maybe we'll get more than 20 people to listen.
22 is our goal, and then we're dropping
22. We get 22. We're good.
Then we're done.
Right now it says 3, so it's just 3 of us.
We got 3.
We got 3.5. Robin can hear Michael. She can hear us.
And let's not forget about Jake.
Jake's right here.
Yeah, Jake's right there. He was whining a little while ago.
Did you hear him? Yeah, Jake whale song. Yep. Yeah. Take the little bastard outside. All right, gentlemen. Been a pleasure.
Awesome.